Hello, this is Jordan with Andalusia Knits, and welcome back to another episode of my podcast where I take you through what I'm currently knitting on, things that I finished up recently, and my plans for knitting in the future. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is episode 8 of the podcast, which is kind of crazy to think about that I've come this far. But it's a good episode today. I'm excited. I finally have a couple nice finished objects to actually show you in this episode, including the sweater that I'm wearing. Looking forward to talking about that. I've got a couple of new projects in the works right now on the needles. Also about to come off the needles and become finished objects themselves, actually. And I have some ideas for what I want to knit for the end of this year into the next year, and so I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the episode. Like I said, I'm excited to show you what I've done, show you my progress, so let's get started with this episode. Alright, so for the first finished object of the day, I finally have my yoke sweater complete. Last episode, I believe, I had completed the bottom parts of the sleeves and the body, and I was getting ready to join those. And I thought it would just be a quick little fun yoke shaping, maybe an afternoon of knitting to do the yoke shaping, and that was not the case. It fully took me a week to do this upper part of the yoke. I mentioned in the last episode that I was being a little ignorantly optimistic about how long it was going to take me to finish the yoke shaping, and 100% it was a little bit of a slog, but it is finished, and I could not be more pleased with this. I think I'm not in a great position right now to show a full body shot, so I'll put up some extra footage of me wearing it so you can kind of see how it lays from top to bottom. But I was very pleased with the fit I got, especially considering I've never knit a yoke sweater before. And in doing research for knitting this, there are, there's a lot of warnings about getting the fit right for a yoke sweater can be kind of finicky. And I will say that I did notice that a little bit, there is a slight bit of tightness in the back shoulder area sometimes when I wear this. However, it's not uncomfortable. It's noticeable, but not to the point of being uncomfortable or anything like that. But I noticed that tightness goes away when I straighten up my posture and sit like I should be sitting. All of that tightness goes away. So it's not so much that the sweater is doing anything wrong as it is I have a tendency to want to hunch over when I sit, and this is just not a sweater shape that wants to accommodate that sort of hunching. So in a way, it's kind of a good thing, that tightness, because it kind of keeps my back a little bit straighter, makes me look a little bit nicer. But other than that, I am super pleased with the fit of this thing. I ended up doing a shoulder yoke, which means that I did not start the yoke shaping until about halfway up the chest. But I also did some modified raglan increases before I got to the yoke shaping, just to ensure that there wasn't a lot of extra fabric in the underarms. And I'll do an overhead shot at the end of this section on the sweater. I'll do an overhead shot to sort of go in a little bit closer and more in depth of how I did the upper shaping. But yeah, so basically it was a modified shoulder yoke, and I absolutely am glad that I knit it from the bottom up instead of the top down. And I did that initially because that is the traditional way that yoke sweaters were knitted, and I wanted to get the traditional experience of knitting one. And I learned as I was knitting it, when I started, I couldn't quite understand why you would want to do it from the bottom up. Because, as much as I hate to agree with, as much as I want to go against mainstream wisdom and the conventional approach, modern approach of knitting top down, yoke sweaters just seem like a sweater style that are just begging to be knit top down. But for whatever reason, at first I couldn't understand why traditionally they would have been knit bottom up. But as I knit the sweater, I started to learn exactly why they wanted to knit these bottom up, and I probably, if I knit another yoke sweater, and I almost certainly will, absolutely going to knit it from the bottom up again. And the number one reason is because when you knit the yoke sweater from the bottom up, you lose a lot of the awkwardness in the fit in the underarms, because when you're going from the top down on your sweater, you don't know you don't have a visual clue of when to split for the sleeves. You have to use your gauge, you have to do some math, and you have to have a little faith that all of that stuff is correct to know when to split for those sleeves, because those sleeves don't yet exist. You can't see them to see if they've been knit long enough. But on the other hand, if you go from the bottom up, these sleeves in the body, I just knit it until I could see and feel that they went up to the appropriate length into my underarm, and then I knew that it was time to start the yoke shaping. And so all of those sort of penguin problems or whatever some people have with their yoke sweaters, I don't really have that at all. It's kind of ridiculous, me waving my arms over my head, but I'm just so proud that I managed to get the underarm stuff to fit so well, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that knitting it from the bottom up, I don't have to wonder if this is the time to split the sleeves. I just put on the sleeve, and if I can roll it up into my underarm, then I know that it is the correct appropriate length of sleeve. And so that was one thing that I learned in knitting it bottom up. I think that probably had something to do with why they're traditionally knit bottom up. But then another reason I saw that perhaps is another reason that these are traditionally knit bottom up is that when it came time to do the decrease rounds, you can, like I said, early in the process, I was worried that the decrease rounds are going to be super visible since this is just plain stockinette otherwise. But that is not the case. They're pretty, if you really kind of feel, you can sort of feel where the stitches are laid on top of each other. But it's a really clean, sort of invisible decrease look. And I think that another reason that these are probably knit from the bottom up instead of the top down traditionally is because those decreases are a lot easier to make invisible as opposed to increases. Regardless of whether you're doing make one increases or lifted increases, I'm just never quite happy with the visibility and the look of those increases. There's just something about adding stitches to the fabric that just looks a little sloppier than removing stitches from the fabric. And so when you do those decrease rounds, like I said, they're very invisible. It's a very clean look, but I have a sneaking suspicion that if I had knit this from the top down and made those increase rounds instead of decrease rounds, that those rounds would be a lot more visible in the finished product than they are otherwise. Like I said, I was a little confused at first as to why in the world you would want to knit one of these sweaters from the bottom up, but now that I've actually done it, it really makes sense. And if I knit another yoke sweater, absolutely gonna knit it from the bottom up in the round. And if I ever knit another raglan sweater in the round, I'm probably gonna knit it from the bottom up as well, because that is another sweater style that can sometimes run into those underarm issues, fit issues. But that, once again, that can be addressed by just simply knitting the sleeves from the bottom up until they are the correct length to hit you in the underarm where you want them to hit you. So what else about this sweater before I go to the overhead? Is there anything else that I've missed about this? Oh, this is Brooklyn Tweed Loft yarn, rest in peace. I had only ever knit one or two other projects with their yarn before they went out of business earlier this year. And so when they had their going out of business sale, I knew I wanted to do something, a big project with their yarn. And so I chose this sweater. And I was a little nervous at first because it's a very rustic yarn. There are lots of people who absolutely hate it, think it's way too scratchy. And as I was knitting it, as it was on the needles, I was kind of afraid that I was going to fall into that camp as well of it being just way too scratchy, because it did just feel so coarse and kind of gross. But once again, if you've ever worked with it before, you know that once you get it soaked, once you got it blocked and laid flat to dry, the nature, the texture of the yarn just changes completely. It feels so much softer. It really bloomed. It doesn't feel like holey or gapey. The yarn doesn't feel like have an inconsistent size anymore. And it really just softened up. Like, this is a pleasure to wear. Like, it's one of those things, it's so lightweight. This was absolutely the right choice to make it, to knit it in the round, because it's just so lightweight. I don't feel any like downward tension. I don't feel the force of gravity like pulling on it around the shoulders or anything. And oh, excuse me, got choked up there. Yeah, it's just like the lightweight nature. It just really makes it a pleasure to wear. It doesn't feel scratchy. It doesn't feel heavy. It is just, this is probably one of my favorite sweaters that I've ever knit, and probably one of my favorite sweaters now that I own, commercial or otherwise. I'm definitely very pleased with this. And I think I've said all I want to say about it. So let's go to the overhead now, and I will look at in depth a little bit more at how I did this modified, these modified raglan decreases, and then the shoulder decreases at the top. All right, so I just wanted to take a quick look at the construction that I did for the upper half of this yoke sweater. Like I said, it's a little bit, it was a modified shoulder yoke sweater. So if we go down here to the underarms, you can see sort of, this is a very woolen spun yarn, it's kind of difficult to see, but you can kind of see a faint raglan line in through here and up into the gray. And that is where I did raglan style decreases, so decreases where the body meets the sleeves. I did those every 8 rounds as opposed to the traditional every 4 rounds. And that was because I didn't particularly want the raglan shape. I just needed something to take some of the underarm stitches out of commission so that there wasn't a lot of bunching in the underarm area. So I did those raglan style decreases every 8 rounds, and you can kind of trace that path because whenever you do sort of stripes like this with a raglan, it sort of distorts the circular nature of the stripes. So you can see that distortion, but then that distortion stops as you get into this gray, because that is about the time that I started doing the actual yoke shaping. And so the original yoke shaping I wanted to use had 5 rounds, 5 specific rounds, where you would do mass decreases to shrink the size of the yoke opening. And because I did those raglan decreases at first, I actually omitted the first of the 5 rounds of yoke decreases because the number of stitches I took off the body from the raglan decreases was equal to the number of stitches I was going to take off the body from the yoke decreases. And so I actually only did 4 yoke decreases. And you can see where those begin as well, because while it did help a little bit during blocking, there is a little bit of distortion. You can kind of see where the yoke shaping begins because it kind of creates these folds of fabric, which is not the end of the world. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, if I do keep my posture correct, those folds sort of go away. But I think that's just kind of the nature of the nature of those like rounds of mass decreases. That's just how it's got to be. Oh, actually, I'm so sorry. I am incorrect. My initial plan was to do 4 of the 5 yoke decreases because of the raglans had taken up some of the first round of decreases. I actually ended up doing 5 because when I did the final decrease that the book I was using suggested, I did not like how big the opening of the neck was. I thought that was still way too big. And so I did a second identical round of decreasing shortly after that final round to get to the actual neck hole size that I wanted. That was a little, I was going off script there. I was a little worried, but that was definitely the right decision. It's the perfect size opening for me now. I'm definitely glad I did that. But yeah, that's just a little bit about how I did the yoke shaping for this sweater and the modifications I made for it as well. All right, for this next finished object, I want to go ahead and apologize because there is a good chance that my outfit and the location that I'm filming has magically changed for this segment, and that is because this next finished object I'm about to show you is a gift that I unfortunately have to give away at a baby shower in just a few hours, and so I wanted to talk about it before I had to do that. And I mean, I'm very happy to give it away, but this is the first pillow I've ever knit, and I just sort of freehanded it, did it myself. And so it's a little painful to give this one away, and you'll see shortly in the works in progress section that I have started working on a pillowcase of my own, but I'm going to show you the finished one that I have currently. And so this, like I said, is for a baby shower, and here we go. Here's the pillow, got all this stripy goodness. And this is going along with a log cabin baby blanket that I knit about a month ago for this gift as well. And I will insert some like clips or images of that right now. I don't have it with me currently, but I wanted something, just a little something else to go with the blanket. And, you know, for a baby gift, like a stuffed animal, some sort of amigurumi, something, that is like the logical, I think, first thought, but I really didn't have like the time or the wherewithal to like learn how to knit stuffed animals. I've never done anything like that. And so my thought was that if I'm going to do something that I've never done before, let's keep it as simple as possible. And you really can't get much more simple than like two squares that I have seamed together. And so I'm going to go ahead and take the pillow out of this right now so I can kind of show you how I constructed it. And so here on the back, we've got some buttons and buttonholes. I had never done any sort of like button band or anything on a garment before, so that was a new experience for me. And for the buttonholes, I just did plain old, I think they were described as like one row buttonholes, where basically you like bind off some stitches and then like turn the work and cast them right back on and keep knitting. And like for the purpose of a pillow, I think that will be just fine. But I saw some like resources online talking about how these are not the most like reinforced or the sturdiest. And I can definitely see like if this was like something like a garment where you're going to be like buttoning and unbuttoning these buttons over and over again, I'd absolutely want something a little more reinforced than these holes. But I'm just like super thrilled for these purposes. It's going to be just fine. It's not like, hopefully they're not going to be like just taking this thing in and out all day, every day. And so I think the buttonholes will be fine. I don't think they're going to stretch out or wear out too much. But yeah, that was really fun to just like create like intentional non-yarn over holes in fabric before. I'd never done anything like that. And the buttons also, I had never sewn on any buttons on anything before. And I think if you sort of look at like the overkill that I've done on wrapping these, you could definitely tell that this was my first attempt. It looks a little ridiculous, but I don't think these things are going anywhere. I got like reinforced upholstery thread, and I think they are like stuck for good. So let's take the pillow out. And like I said, like I knit two squares. So we got the back square here, and then this front square with the flap on top. And I just did some like decreases as I got down to the end of the flap. And then here on the inside is where it really looks like a hot mess. We got all of these ends that I wove in on both sides. So basically, for these stripes, every time I change colors, I broke the yarn, which I think was the right choice. Like with 5 colors, like it would have been like, I think I would have gotten even more of like a noticeably thick ridge if I was just like carrying each of those 5 yarns up the entire thing. And so I think that cutting the ends and weaving them in was the right thing to do, but it did take a little bit of like patience and thought. Like normally when I'm weaving in ends, it's kind of just like an afterthought. I'm not really paying much attention to it, but like because this yarn is so thick and because there are so many ends that I had to weave in, I really paid attention to like where I was taking each piece of yarn so that they weren't like overlapping any more than they had to, because it does create just like a little bit of thickness that you don't feel in just the regular garter stitch. But it's like I said, it's not too bad, and once the pillow's in, like you really can't tell. It's not terrible. And so then yeah, I just did some like mattress stitch up the sides. I'd never done mattress stitch in garter stitch before. I was a little nervous how that was going to turn out, but I'm really pleased with the result of these seams. Let me pull that up. Yeah, it's not like a perfectly invisible seam, but it is like invisible enough and it's consistent enough that it looks on purpose. It looks nice. Yeah, like it's not perfectly hidden, but it's like I did it. I did every step right, so it looks consistent. I think it looks really nice and well done. I'm kind of glad that it's not perfectly invisible. And then this bottom seam, I had never really done any sort of seaming two cast on edges together. So like normally if I have two horizontal edges, I won't bind them off and then seam it together. I'll just do a 3-needle bind off because that's faster and easier for me. And so it's been a real hot minute. Like maybe I've done it in the past, but it's been several years at least since I've ever had to like seam two horizontal edges together and not use a 3-needle bind off. And so I kind of did it inside out. I think like the ridge is like on the outside, but thankfully the way I did it, like it looks right. It looks like, once again, it looks on purpose. It's definitely visible, but it looks consistent enough that it looks like it was a design choice and not just me misunderstanding how to seam two pieces of fabric together. But yeah, so this is the pillowcase. And like I said, it's going to a good home. It's going to a very knit-worthy couple and hopefully a knit-worthy baby. Hopefully the baby's nice to me when she's finally born. But yeah, so it's a great. I'm happy to give it away. But like I said, like knitting just takes so much time that like anytime I have to give something away, it's just a little bit painful because I did spend. This is my baby. I'm giving it to a very deserving baby, but this feels like my baby and it kind of hurts to give it away. But yeah, so I'm going to be giving that away this afternoon along with the blanket. And I think that's going to do it for my finished objects this episode. And so now we'll move on to the works in progress. All right, now we are moving into the works in progress. And this first one is going to look a little familiar because it is very similar to the last finished object I just showed you. Like I mentioned in the previous segment, I knit a pillowcase for the first time for a baby shower gift. And I loved it so much, and it was so painful to give it away that I knew I had to knit one for myself. And so I have started one in some slightly different colors, but we've got a front panel here, or a back panel here actually, and then complete. And then the front panel is almost complete. It's just a matter of knitting on the sort of like envelope flap that I'm gonna do the button band on. And so this yarn is a little different. This is Brava Baby DK from Knit Picks, which is their low pill acrylic option. And it's kind of nuts. Like it's been years since I've touched acrylic yarn, since I've used acrylic yarn for a pattern. And then like the last two projects I've done have both been in acrylic yarns. And honestly, it's not too bad. Like I don't necessarily want to wear this against my skin, but for home goods or a throw pillow, like, of course, yeah, this is a very obvious choice, I think, because of how easy it is to launder. And the fact that you're not going to have to be, like, wrapping this around your body. It's not going to, like, turn you into a gross acrylic baked potato or anything like that. But I bought this yarn from Knit Picks. It was on sale in sort of these, like, three-color, like, color schemes. And I like this. It does look kind of like retro. I've been calling it like vintage toothpaste or retro mint because it does look a little like old school, sort of like 70s patio furniture. But the fact that I'm almost certainly going to put it on my patio, that I think that will work just fine. I don't have a lot of super insightful stuff to say about this because most of the construction things and what have you I've talked about in the finished object where I showed you the completed pillow. But yeah, like this is coming along quickly. This was a nice just little fast mindless project. I did a lot of this waiting around in orchestra rehearsals on the pieces that I didn't play, and I made some nice progress. I started this Thursday night at rehearsal, and like I said, it just have to get the flap knit and then sew these two pieces together, and this will be ready to go. Very excited. I've already got a pillow because the pillow I bought for the baby shower gift, it fit at first, and then I washed the pillowcase, and even though it was acrylic, it grew slightly, and it was already just maybe a little too small, and so I had to go and buy the next size of pillow up for the baby shower gift. But the 18 by 18 pillow that I originally bought for that, I think should be just fine for this, because this ended up being like 16 and a half or 17 inches across or 17 inches square. So I think that will be fine. This was a lot of fun. It's just a lot of like boring garter stitch though. I definitely, I'm gonna have like, I'm getting over the pillow bug at this point. Like if I knit another one, it's absolutely gonna have to be something besides just like garter stitch, because it's been a little bit of a slog here towards the end, just like knitting everything. And I don't know what it is, and I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but there's just something about garter stitch that feels even more boring than even like knitting stockinette in the round, which you're doing the same thing, you're knitting every single stitch. Like there's something about the garter stitch that just feels more boring than stockinette. It crushes my soul more than stockinette, and I can't quite put my finger on why that would be the case, because like I said, it's exactly the same thing as like knitting stockinette in the round, and I did that for a long time on this sweater, and I never really felt sort of like as bored or ready to quit as I did knitting these garter stitch squares. And I'm not quite sure what's different there, but yeah, if you feel the same way or you have any insights, definitely chime in. I'd love to know why garter stitch feels just so much more boring and so much more of a slog than stockinette, even though if you're knitting stockinette in the round, it's exactly the same thing. So yeah, new pillow, excited for that, and this will almost certainly be done by the next episode, because it's just going to take me a couple more hours to finish this up, and I'll have a pillow of my own. Okay, so, excuse me. There we go. All right. I think we're good to go now. So last up in the works in progress today, I have something that's a little boring. I showed it last episode, and I really haven't made much progress on it since then, because the pillows and the sweater sort of like took over my attention for most of the last couple weeks. But I have the Contrary Motion wrap, which is a design that I've been working on, and I mostly wanted to show it to you because I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board on this one at least a little bit. And that is because my intention is for the edges of the wrap to be shaped with this sort of like zigzag sawtooth sort of pattern. You can kind of see when I hold up the points and let gravity do all the work, you can kind of see that it creates like a zigzagged edge. However, I noticed that even though I blocked it pretty aggressively, once it was off the needles and once it wasn't lying flat anymore, like you can really see that those zigzag edges don't want to show. They don't want to be seen. They want to curl over, and that's because there's something to do with like the increases and the decreases that create this zigzag shaping. It's sort of giving the fabric a three-dimensional shape. It's wanting to like kind of curl over. You can kind of see it's like wrapped around my thumb there, but it wants to create, yeah, it still wants to curl under a little bit. And I don't want to go any thicker on the border or anything like that, so that's not going to be an option. And so my next attempt to get this to lie flat is going to be simply more aggressive blocking, because I noticed you can kind of see, let's do this on the red side. It might be easier to see in the red. But on this side, let's go somewhere where I've definitely blocked it already. So the stitches, you can kind of see there, they want to lean out towards the edge. They kind of have this like rounded edge to them, like right in through here. And while I pinned down the points, I didn't like do anything to ensure that like those curves were taken care of. So my next step is going to be to block it again and really pull on those so that all of the columns that are curved when they're at rest are like straight up and down, you know, in vertical columns when they're blocked. And if that doesn't work, if more aggressive blocking doesn't work, I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's definitely gonna have to go back to the drawing board at that point. It's not something that I'm gonna be able to like fix on the fly while I'm knitting the project. I'm probably gonna have to frog this and try again. But hopefully, like I said, I did enough blocking the first time to make the points visible. But like I said, I wasn't paying attention to like the curve of the columns of stitches when I was blocking. So next time I'm gonna go through and be really mindful about making those just as straight and up and down as possible. And hopefully that will keep things from sort of curling in on the edges, because if that happens, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because like the whole point is that like you've got the zigzag color stripes, but then you also have like the zigzag edging. But if the edges aren't actually zigzagging, then I think that the project becomes a lot less interesting. So hopefully the aggressive blocking is going to take care of it. If it doesn't, I might try like a different fiber blend. So this is Acadia from the Fiber Company, which is a blend of wool and alpaca and silk, which I thought would be good. And it does have a lot of nice drape, and it does want to get all loosey goosey and floppy, like I want it, like I intended for it to. But maybe it's just not enough. Maybe I just need something that is gonna like stretch out and stay stretched out even more so than this blend. But if I can make this work with these colors and with this yarn, I'd love to continue with it, because I really love this sort of like autumnal color scheme going on, and I love the idea of the zigzag stripes and the zigzag fabric. But yeah, at this point it's just not really working out. The points on the shaping of the fabric, I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board and figure something out, or gonna have to completely reimagine this project, which I don't want to do, but I'm willing to do, because I just can't. I love looking at these colors on the camera. They look even more vibrant on camera than they are in real life. This is a really nice, if a little busy and sort of retro color scheme, but I love it. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, I will be able to figure out a solution to get this to block and stay all crisp and zigzaggy, but that remains to be seen at this point. Okay, so I am finished up with everything that I wanted to show you knitting wise today. And so I thought I would take this into the episode and just talk about my plans for projects and stuff coming up for the next couple months. It's only recently that I realized that the end of 2025 is fast approaching, and so I had quite a few other plans for things I wanted to knit in 2025. But at this point, like it's just like it's a logistical thing. Like it's not going to happen. Like that list of things is just way too long for the next 2 months. And so I was trying to like prioritize some things that I might be interested in doing. And one of those things is, unfortunately, I'm interested in doing it, but it's not particularly interesting. But I would like to have another pair of socks for myself done by the end of the year. And that is mostly not because I have any plans on doing anything different. I haven't found like a cool sock pattern I want to try. I typically knit the same pair of socks over and over and over again, but it's more of a pragmatic reason, and that is because this fall season, I finally have enough pairs of hand knitted socks that I can basically wear hand knit socks every single day of the week, but just barely. Like if I want to do that, I have to like be on top of keeping them clean, or like there's gonna be a lapse, or I'm gonna have to wear dirty socks. I have just enough that like if as long as I'm constantly washing the pairs as they get dirty immediately, like I can have clean socks, clean hand knit socks every single day. But the washing is getting annoying at this point, and so I would like at least one more pair of socks. I would like 2 or 3 more pairs of socks would really alleviate the problem. But by the end of the year, that's not going to happen. So I would at least like to get another pair of socks knit by the end of the year, just for purely pragmatic reasons, because I'm just so sick of washing socks all day, every day. It's very annoying. And I know a lot of these problems could be alleviated if I would just stop being so like snobby and uppity and knit my socks with actual sock yarn that uses superwash, machine washable wool. But for whatever reason, I just really love the 100% non-superwash wool socks that I make. And they hold up great. Like the felting, they are going to felt on the bottom. That's absolutely going to happen. But you want it to happen because that's sort of the way that they maintain their integrity. Like there's no nylon or anything to prevent them from falling apart. And so that felting, though, sort of like takes the place of that and really creates a reinforced fabric in those high stress areas. But anyways, yeah, so it's kind of a boring project, but I really, really could use another pair of socks, or I'm going to lose my mind doing laundry. And so I think what I'm going to do as a compromise for myself, like as a reward for like doing this like pragmatic but boring project, I think I'm actually gonna like go a little crazy and maybe try a short row heel. I have never knit anything but a heel flap and gusset on my socks before. And it's not that I have anything against short row heels or any other constructions. It's just, my thought is that the heel flap and gusset works really, really well for me. And so why would I like risk trying another technique that might not work really well for me when I have this one technique that I know is absolutely going to work for me? And so that's my rationale for like being sort of a conservative knitter and not like experimenting with a lot of new techniques and stuff every project, is that like if I know, like why would I like try something that might not work when I know for sure that this thing is going to work? But obviously, like to grow and like learn new things as a knitter, you're going to have to experiment at some point. And so I think I'm going to go nuts this time, and if you can believe it, I'm going to do a German short row heel, which I know is the craziest thing you've probably ever heard in your life. I know it's madness, but I'm actually going to try a short row heel. My only concern is that even I've not done a short row heel before, but my concern, I know like the general, like generally how they're done is you use like a set number of stitches to work the heel across, but that which creates like a heel that is going to be like a set number of rows. And so that was the reason that I really like the heel flap and gusset, is that I can knit the heel flap to exactly as long as I need it to be, regardless of any other like measurement or schematic concerns I have. But that heel flap, or the short row heel, its length, its depth is tied to how many stitches are going to be used to create it, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, I know the gist of doing a short row heel, but not the specifics. So that's something I'm going to have to look up and see, like, based on my gauge, like, is the heel going to be deep enough to actually accommodate my foot in the way I need it to, or am I going to have to do some modifications? So yeah, going off the beaten path just barely, still doing 1x1 ribbing for the cuff, still doing top down. Nothing's going to change except for the heels. And we'll see if maybe I find a new technique that actually works for me and that I don't have to avoid anymore. So, oh my God, I've been rambling about this sock now. I can see on the camera for like 5 minutes. I gotta stop talking about this pair of socks. So that's my number one project. I'd like to get finished before the end of the year, and I'm probably going to be casting on soon. And the other thing, I don't have it with me today, but I did talk about it in the last episode, and I would like to do a new hat design. When I bought the Brava Baby DK from Knit Picks, I also got some of their Swish DK, which is their superwash yarn. And I got some solid color and a variegated, and I've been doing some experiments with two-color traveling twisted stitch designs, and I would like to incorporate that into a hat that also incorporates the zigzag decreases that I used on my Iron Spark hat design earlier this year. Which reminds me, that is the other like I guess it is still technically knitting related, but it's not a project I want to knit. But so I designed a hat earlier this year, the Ion Spark hat, and I knit a couple samples, and I did a test knit, and after that test knit, it just sort of went nowhere. I have not, like, there's a few like minor things I need to update the pattern on, but it's otherwise pretty ready to be released, and for whatever reason, I just sort of lost a lot of momentum and steam after the test knit, which is odd. It was a great experience. Everybody was really helpful and really nice. And it was really lovely to see other people like knit these designs that I'd come up with. But yeah, like after the test knit, I was like, okay, yep, time to revise this pattern and get it out. And just literally have not really thought much about it since then. So that is another thing I'd like, maybe like during the holidays after work has settled down and stuff, and I'm off for a while, that might be something to work on, getting that pattern all finished up. But yeah, 3 things like on, I don't know how many fingers I was holding up there. 3 things, like for some people, that might not be a lot of knitting over the course of like a month and a half, but that is probably going to keep me busy until the beginning of the year. And at that point, I'm not sure yet. I would like to like sit down and think about what I want to do knitting wise for the new year, but I really haven't done much of that yet. Probably will put out a video though sometime in December that is looking at my plans for 2026. Maybe one also that is everything I knit in 2025, but we'll see. But yeah, so a few knitting ideas, a few pattern ideas, a couple of video ideas, and that should keep me busy till the end of the year, absolutely. So thanks for watching once again, especially on this one. Thanks for listening to me ramble for like the last 10 minutes about things I want to knit but don't have anything to show for. So if you like videos like this, if you like what you see, please go ahead and like the video and subscribe. I generally release these podcast style videos every 2 weeks or so. It was pretty regularly every 2 weeks, but I've kind of like gone off that schedule because it was a little grueling, and it's nice to like release these when I have like a finished object or two to show you, as opposed to just like constantly showing you things that are in progress but not yet finished. So yeah, I'll have another one of these videos out in the next couple weeks. And every once in a while when I'm in the mood, I'll do more like topical videos, tutorial style things as well. So once again, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.